Today, we'll be unpacking the fear of being abandoned. And this is a massive fear. We might be someone who wears their heart on their sleeve, invests all of our energy into that person, into the relationship, only for them to up and leave us. And we're left in this terrible pain. Don't do anything. Don't act. Don't send that text. Make peace with this part of yourself because you're worthy of a love that feels like home. Hi everyone, welcome back to Awakening Airwaves and another episode of Ready for Authentic Love. I'm your host, Gwen Allison, founder of My Spiritual Butterfly. I'm a Reiki Master Teacher and a transformational life coach. And so in this episode of Ready for Authentic Love, we're going to actually continue our exploration of the 4 fears that tend to sabotage our relationships. We've already looked at the fear of losing our independence, losing ourselves. We've also looked at the fear of being cheated on. And the last episode, we looked at fear of being rejected. So today we'll be unpacking the fear of being abandoned. And this is a massive fear for many of us, right? So we're going to look at how this fear shows up in relationships, where it might have originated from, and how we can start to heal this fear, so that we can really enjoy our relationships going forward without all of that anxiety and dread. So, yeah, I want to start by looking at how this fear shows up, first of all. And it can show up in many ways. The first I'm going to look at is avoidance. We did look at that with rejection as well, but we can have such a strong fear of a relationship ending and the person leaving us that we'd rather not even start the relationship for fear of feeling that pain, feeling that heartbreak. And so we kind of will end up developing what's called an avoidant attachment style. So, we might be someone who wears their heart on their sleeve, invests all of our energy into that person, into the relationship, only for them to up and leave us, and we're left in this terrible pain. So we'd rather not expose ourselves to that hurt again, which makes sense. And if this is something that's happened in a previous relationship or a succession of previous relationships, we can believe that this is always our fate, and it can be so strong, that we have this desire to avoid that pain and protect our delicate hearts that we literally just decide not to even go there, basically. I have had clients who've said to me that they believe that the women in their family are cursed in some way because all of the women, their mothers, their sisters have gone through really strong breakups where they've been left. And so they've adopted a belief, which is quite dangerous to do, really, that they have a deep rooted curse in the family. And this is something that, yeah, we really want to kind of not embody because it's just becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. Um, yeah, but if we do decide to enter a relationship and we haven't tended to this fear of abandonment, we might enter that relationship consciously choosing to not be fully open, to not fully open our hearts to this new person. We might avoid vulnerability, avoid them getting too close or us too close to them, numbing or denying our feelings for this other person because the fear of being abandoned or hurt again is so, so strong in us, we close down. But when we keep our heart closed, we've talked about this before, then, you know, what we're really doing is we're keeping ourselves attached to the blockage. We're keeping that in place and we're pushing the other person away because the other person is being denied any validation. They're not getting very much from you. They may be giving 100% and you're maybe just giving 50 because you have this fear. And so the relationship becomes unbalanced, it doesn't deepen, it just stays very superficial, and it may probably end anyway because of this lack of reciprocation. Yeah, so it's important not to decide that that's going to be your game plan when you enter a relationship. Yeah, so because what you're avoiding, what you're trying to avoid, can end up happening anyway. Um, and then when that does happen, it adds to the evidence for you. We've lost someone again. They've left us again because, you're thinking because maybe you were vulnerable or you did trust a little bit, but usually it's because you are unable to push through the fear, um, and be shown that you can trust again, So it is important to, just have a different game plan on that. If you are an avoidant person, and the latest experience of abandonment that you have obviously further entrenches you into that belief that the relationship, than any other relationship you have, is going to end in pain. So let's have a look at some journal prompts that we can maybe ponder, reflect on. And as usual, when we're doing this kind of work, it's interesting to find out where this first began. So my first journal prompt is, when did I first experience being left alone? When did I first experience being left alone? And a follow-on question for that is, how did I respond? How did I respond? Yeah. So we're just looking at that. It is important to know where it first started. And as I said before, sometimes just becoming conscious of that is enough to start healing that. So it is important. The other way that fear of abandonment might show itself is through developing an anxious attachment style. So for many people, this fear creates this constant vigilance, where we might read into every small nuance, change, inflection in the voice of our partner. We might really be hyper focused on how quickly that person texts us back, whether they seem distracted or a little bit quiet today. So all of these things we're looking out for and trying to get clues or cues from the relationship, just to actually understand, we think in our minds anyway, where the relationship is at. And so it can also show up as clinginess, needing constant reassurance, checking in too often, or just feeling panicked if your partner suddenly says they just kind of need a bit of space, or they're going out with their friends or things like that. Not even like they need space in terms of weeks, but just like 5 minutes can kind of cause us to move into this anxious behavior. Sometimes it can actually flip the other way, where we say to ourselves, you know what, this is feeling a bit rocky, a bit shaky. We think in our mind, so I'm going to leave first. I'm going to walk away first of all before they walk away from me. And I don't know how many of us have ever done that before. I've certainly done that before. But we want to kind of get out before we get hurt. But that really is fear of abandonment playing out right there. We're not actually sticking to this thing. So again, yeah, this anxious attachment style can not only stem from recent experiences, but also, as you can imagine, from childhood. So if we were abandoned by a parent or a carer, maybe someone left the home, there was a divorce or separation, or there was one carer, one parent that we was just so unreliable, kept letting us down, didn't show up for us, then this can kind of lead to this attachment style developing quite early on. Um, so yeah, we've talked about people pleasing before in the previous episode. So that's another thing that can be born from this attachment style. We're trying so hard to keep the person there that we will people please. We'll put them on a pedestal. And a lot of this is coming from beliefs because of that childhood abandonment, that we're not enough, we're not lovable enough. There can be a really deep unconscious belief that permeates the whole relationship, which basically says being me is not enough to keep this person in my life, to keep this person here, to have this person stay. If I revealed all aspects to myself, there might be something in me that scares them away. So yeah, we really do need to kind of start to examine this and look at this. And I think what surprises some people, but when we start noting our behaviors, we realize this fear of abandonment doesn't always show itself as congeniality and people pleasing. It can also show up as anger. and resentment if the other person doesn't respond in the way that we expect them to. So we might be rebelling in some way against, maybe a child or parent or something like that, but we're making it mean so much about ourselves that it makes us angry that this person would treat us like this. How dare they not reply? How dare they say this or think this? That we then come out in anger. Um, it can also show up as guilt tripping to get validation, where we're kind of rejecting ourselves first. So you probably don't like me anymore because I did this, um, or this happened. You can't, there's no way you want to stay with me. I bet you want to leave me now. So we kind of put words in people's mouths. And that again is coming from that anxious attachment style. Um, but the key thing, guys, to remember is regardless of how the reaction shows up, whether it's anxiety, whether it's anger, the key thing is not to act from this fractured space. Don't do anything. Don't act. Don't send that text. Don't send that email. Don't pick up the phone and do, we really have to kind of think about that. Don't act. We need to wait till we've calmed down. So another journal prompt is, what is my typical reaction when I start feeling anxious? What is my typical reaction when I start feeling anxious? So just writing that one down, you can pause and answer that now, or you might want to answer it later. It's up to you. And what is the outcome that follows this reaction? What is the outcome that follows this reaction? And this second prompt is really key because then we start to see the patterns. We also start to see for ourselves that, okay, this happened, triggered me. I got angry or I said this. We both had an argument. We didn't, we tiptoed around each other. Maybe I pushed the person away, or, even understanding that my initial belief about what that action meant was not true. And you might see that pattern again and again and again. I thought this, and it actually didn't mean that. I thought this, and it actually didn't mean that. So even in seeing that, you're starting to placate yourself. You're starting to understand that this pattern is simply that, just a pattern of behavior, born on hardly anything at all. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's important to catch these reactions really quickly before they spiral and end up pushing your partner away anyway. So, pausing, taking some deep breaths is really, really good. And the way I would look at it, I think I've said this before, is treating it as you would do anger. If you're angry about something, most of us have some go-to tools that we pick up or move to when we're upset about something or angry about something. We don't normally go to the person and start shouting our head off and screaming. Some of us do, but most of us tend not to do that with anger. And so treat anxiety the same. Um, Basically, understand that you're not going to act when you're feeling that energy, feeling the charge. And so, breathing, taking some deep breaths, maybe into your hara, your lower belly, and asking yourself, am I just assuming what they're thinking? Am I mind reading? Because we don't know. They haven't said anything or maybe done anything. We've just picked up a cue or a sound or an inflection, and then we're making it mean that they're thinking this or thinking that. So ask that question. Am I assuming here what's going on? Am I catastrophizing? Often we will go to the point of realizing that we're making every disagreement, every challenge mean that the relationship is going to end, which means we can never be honest about who we are and what we're feeling. We can never deal with conflict in a more empowering way, more intelligent way, because we believe that every conflict is risking the relationship. That isn't true, You can ask yourself, am I generalizing? All men do this, all people do this, are we doing that? Um, am I making this about me when it doesn't need to be about me? You know, Again, we do this. If we don't hear back from them quickly enough, we assume that it's about us. They don't like us anymore. They're wanting to reject us, or something's going on, when it could just be about them and something they're doing. It could be they're busy at work. don't have time, maybe read the message but haven't had time to reply. It could be a number of things. They could be going through problems, issues. I think we mentioned this in fear of rejection. So it isn't always about you. And so asking the question, okay, so what else could this mean? And you might get a really nice download from your guys. We've taken that breath, we've softened the body, we've expanded the body out. We might get something else come through to us. And if nothing else, it will calm us down. And even moving to an even more elevated question, does it need to mean anything? What if it didn't mean anything? Do we need to give meaning to every single thing? So yeah, just some questions to float around as you're going into your breath and getting quieter. Key thing, you're not reacting. Yeah. I also wanted to share some grounding practices with you. So starting to breathe into your chest or your lower belly or your heart again. But this time we're going to place our left hand on our heart and the right hand on our solar plexus, or one hand, it doesn't matter which really. And your feet on the floor. So the solar plexus is where we store a lot of the anxiety and fear and worry. Fear is stored in the kidneys, anger is stored in the liver. So this is a really hot point for our emotions. And obviously the heart is calming us down when we're placing the hand on our heart. We're connecting to the truth of ourselves there. And so you can find some words to say when you're in this pose, in this I guess meditation. You're slowing down your breathing, and you might say things like, "I choose not to abandon myself. I am safe within me. I let go of giving meaning to anything. I'm open to seeing another perspective. I love myself. All is well." Yeah. So that's a really nice quick meditation to do to help you calm. You're placing your hands on your body, which is nice and somatic. Soma means body. So we're getting ourselves out of our head and anxious thinking and into our body. We can have our eyes open or closed. If you feel more anxious, closing your eyes and just softly open them. And you can gently look around and see what's around you. Not necessarily giving meaning to anything you see, but you're just moving into that kind of quieter space. Yeah. Another thing you might want to try is soothing your self-talk about relationships. So grabbing your journal and writing down all of your limiting beliefs about relationships. Write them all down and then take time to soothe each one as if you were talking to your best friend. Anything that's in there, "I'm not lovable," but there are so many people that love you. Whatever comes up for you, relationships always end. Who says they need to last forever? Some relationships end after 30 years, but you still enjoy that. You still learn something from it. It's there to help you to grow. So you're just writing down these statements, these limiting beliefs about relationships, and then, soothing them with, I guess, an affirmation style statement so that you can repeat this to yourself whenever you get time. Every day is really good, but you're building new neural pathways in the brain that will fire instead of the old way of negative thinking. And also, a really nice tip, I may have said it before in a previous episode, is to record your affirmations and fall asleep to them. So they can be really, really low, or you can have headphones in if you like, but you're falling asleep to them, you're self programming, you're self hypnotizing because when you're falling asleep or resting, you're going into alpha theta brainwave states, slower brainwave states that allows new information into the subconscious. So this is a really powerful way to start to reprogram yourself, hearing yourself saying these encouraging, soothing things over and over. They really will integrate more deeply when you start being kinder to yourself, more compassionate to yourself. And then you'll notice that you're treating yourself this way in your reality, and then the people you attract, situations you attract, will be reflecting that compassion and that kindness. So self-hypnosis is a big thing, and quite an important thing to try. It just takes a couple of minutes to record on your phone, and then you'll have this little audio you can listen to, not just as you fall asleep, but also as you're walking around, um, you know, when you're in the park, going for a walk or running or pottering around the house or even at work or traveling in the car. There's so many places you can listen to this audio because your subconscious mind loves the sound of your voice. That's what it's used to hearing, the energy of that. The energy of your voice is really powerful to your subconscious mind and your 50 to 100 trillion cells that are always listening. So that's a nice thing to try. And of course, being a Reiki master teacher, daily self Reiki has to be on the list. Yeah. So if you're doing your Reiki daily, that will calm you. That will give you a place to self-reflect, to maybe recite the Reiki principles that remind you to be compassionate with yourself, to not to dwell on the past or the future, and not to make the present an uncomfortable place to be as well. Maybe move you into gratitude, but it balances us as well as connecting us to our body, and allowing us to process emotions. So it's wonderful to do. If you're attuned to Reiki 2, then you might want to try chanting the Kotodama for the symbols. The second Reiki symbol, which is SEI HE KI, which is harmony. And it's all about our mental wellness, really, and our emotional wellness. So, this is a lovely one to try to bring the heart and mind into coherence, into balance. Your heart knows the truth. Your mind just thinks and thinks and overthinks, but your heart knows the truth. And so, rather than letting the mind lead with all the limiting beliefs and the criticism and the negative self talk, we can now let the heart lead with that truth, which is you are loved, you are enough, you are worthy, all of these wonderful things. So, chanting the Kotodama, and Kotodama means spirit word, energy word, soul word. In Japan, they believe that every word has an energy. So, the symbols also have a Kotodama. And this is something I teach in Reiki 2 to my students. And we chant, and it's just so, so powerful. Even just a few minutes of chanting, we can feel that energy. We can, all sorts of sensations in our body. We just feel so amazing. So, making that part of your daily practice as well as your self Reiki, if you're a Reiki practitioner, and maybe sometimes you might substitute hands-on healing with chanting or with a meditation like Hatsureho, somewhere where we're breathing into the hara to help transmute that energy and that worry and that anxiety is going to be great. But I'll put a link to my video where we're chanting in my Reiki 2 class, we're chanting the Kotodama for SEI HE KI. So you can listen to that. It's an hour long, but you don't have to do an hour. You can just do 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever feels right for you. You can have it playing again as you're moving about your day, or playing in your headphones as you're driving or car or whatever. So, but definitely have a listen to that because it's a lovely way to start to shift that energy if you've set that intention. Um, but yeah, also, I guess one final thing to think about, because if you've never processed the origins of these behaviors, you may want to look at that. You may want to look at speaking to a therapist or a counselor, and Reiki sessions can work perfectly well alongside that. The nice thing with Reiki, or on its own if you want to try that route as well, but having someone give you Reiki means you can just lie there and surrender. Reiki itself will go where it needs to go. There's no talking in Reiki, so as we know, it will just remove any layers that are there to be removed. And then with each session, you'll just find yourself feeling a little bit better, showing up differently in your relationships, in your lives. So I just feel it's important for me to say that you can seek some help, rather than, if you really feel you're battling with this fear of abandonment, then definitely seek some help. Yeah, it's important, really, that we do that if we haven't done that already. Okay, so to summarize, we need to understand where this fear of abandonment is coming from. It's important just to see that. We don't need to dwell there too long and have it bring us down, but we need to acknowledge and see where that's come from. And sometimes, as I said, just revealing that to ourselves is healing. Just understanding that this is where it's come from is healing. Notice how this fear manifests itself. What action do you typically go to? What do you start thinking? What do you start doing when you're triggered, when your anxiety is triggered and this fear is triggered? And then some of the things we practice, some of these techniques, give them a try. Go into the simple breath, eyes open, eyes closed, placing your hands on your body, one on your solar plexus or maybe one on your sacral. But the key thing is to remember, do not act until you feel calm. You know, when your mind and body feel like they're compassionate, they're in balance, you're making way for something, some answers, a new idea, a new perspective about this situation. If we act when we're not calm, we may well regret that action. But just, yeah, just you may still decide that you want to say something, but you can do that from that calmer space, that more compassionate space. You'll be like, okay, this isn't right. I'm going to say something. You can have a conversation as opposed to a shouting match. So it's important. So, yeah, and above all else, make peace with this part of yourself. Have that compassion, and understand that you might need to do this practice every time it comes up. The universe will have it show up again and again and again. Each time we get to practice one of the techniques we've shared here today, you've got something to go to. You practice it. It may work a little bit, may not work, but just keep trying. And then over time, you'll find that you've developed new behaviors, new ways of being, new ways of interacting with your partner, and you're able to give yourself what you need, rather than asking your partner for that thing. You're able to be more rational about things that might be going on in the relationship and then actually act from that place, which is much better. Yeah, so you'll slowly notice that change in you for sure. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm hoping this kind of made sense and I'm hoping this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Ready for Authentic Love on Awakening Airwaves. If this episode did resonate with you, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share it with your friends and family, and definitely leave a comment or question wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast. It helps this message to reach those who are ready for deep, conscious, authentic love, just like you are, because you're worthy of a love that feels like home. Yeah, I love that. So until next time, stay open, stay grounded, and stay true to your heart. Thank you.